Hello, it's very good to be with you again to share some thoughts about some religious paintings. Last time we looked at paintings of the crucifixion. Now we're going to move on to the next events of the first Easter. The Gospel accounts vary a little, but they are agreed in all the key points. So Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy nobleman, and Nicodemus, a member of the Sanhedrin, lower Jesus' body from the cross, and they wrap it in clean linen. They place it in a new tomb, which they secure with a huge boulder. A group of women are watching all these events. They've followed Jesus throughout his ministry. They include his mother, of course, Mary, Joanna, Salome, Mary, wife of Clopas, and so on. They've been with him right to the end. Early on the first Easter morning, these women come to the tomb carrying spices to anoint Jesus' body. They're anxious as to how they're going to move that huge boulder. When they arrive, they see that it's already moved. Mary Magdalene looks in and sees an empty tomb, and she is distraught. There's an angel sitting on the tomb who says, "Don't be afraid. Why are you weeping?" Her reply is, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've put him." Mary then, outside the tomb, sees someone she assumes is the gardener, until he addresses her by name, and then she realizes that it is her risen Lord. She falls at his feet and reaches out to him, but he says, "Don't touch me. I have not yet ascended to my Father." Both the paintings we're going to consider today are by the wonderful Fra Angelico and are in the monastery of San Marco in Florence. They're upstairs on the first floor, and each one is in one of the monks' cells. These were painted to aid the monks in their contemplation and prayer. So from right to left, we have a group of 3 women carrying jars. Those are their spices. Mary Magdalene is looking down into the empty tomb. And if we look more closely at her face, we can see the deep sadness and shock. The angel sitting on the tomb points into the tomb to show that Jesus is really not there. But the angel with its left hand points up to Jesus. He is risen from the dead. Jesus rises up in a blaze of light. He's carrying a victory flag, victory over death. He's also carrying a palm, which indicates that his was a martyr's death. And from this point onwards, Renaissance artists always used palms to indicate the death of a martyr. On the far left is St. Dominic. This is appropriate. He is the head of the Dominican order, and he is praying. Our second painting is one of the first cells that you see as you enter the top floor. What a lucky monk to have this painting on his wall. Here obviously we have Mary Magdalene, and she is outside the tomb in the garden. She's often shown wearing orange and red clothes, as here, and her hair is long and luscious. I wonder whether Fra Angelico is suggesting that this very lush garden is reminiscent of the Garden of Eden. After all, it was the sin of Adam and Eve that led to Jesus' death, ultimately, when he died for mankind. There are a number of trees in the garden. Right in the centre we have a palm tree, reminding us again that Jesus' death was that of a martyr. There is a very big olive grove, and that harks back to the Mount of Olives, where the event began with Judas's betrayal. Second from the left, you can see a tall cypress tree. If you've travelled in Tuscany at all, you will have seen these trees all over the landscape. They are still symbolic of death, and they're often found in cemeteries. And there is Jesus carrying a shovel over his shoulders. Fra Angelico is hinting at this idea that Mary Magdalene thought he was the gardener. Fra Angelico has depicted Jesus here with blonde hair and a beard that's also blonde. This is unusual. He's normally shown much darker. I think what Fra Angelico is suggesting is that the blood, the dirt, the sweat of his crucifixion is all in the past. Jesus has risen from the dead. Now he is white, clean, pure. He has a real human body. And if we focus in on his hands and feet, you can see the little marks of blood where the nails pierced them. These are echoed by the flowers dotted around the grass, which have little red centres. As soon as he addresses her by her name, Mary, she recognises him. She falls down in reverence and reaches out to him. But he distances himself and says, "Noli me tangere," don't touch me. These paintings are often known by that title. It's become so famous. Actually, it's a rather poor translation of John's original Greek. This episode is only recounted in John's Gospel. The Greek verb means something like, don't cling to me, don't hang on to me. And the message is, things are different now, Mary. Earlier in John's Gospel, in chapters 14 to 16, Jesus had expounded at length what was going to happen in the future. He told the disciples, "I'm going away. Things are going to be different, but I will return." And this, of course, was Pentecost. He will come back in a different form. And I suppose this meeting with Mary is the beginning of the changes. So don't cling on to me, don't cling on to how things were in the past. This is a new era. And then he gives Mary a commission. Go and tell the rest of the disciples that you've seen me. She's to be an apostle to the apostles. So what lessons can we learn from these two beautiful paintings? The women at the tomb. When we looked at paintings of the crucifixion, we saw this group of women working together as a united group, and now we see them again coming to anoint Jesus' body. They're supporting each other to do things for Jesus. How wonderful it is when a group of women, or men and women together, are united and supporting each other. It might be in grief, it might be in a church project, something that they're doing together, working together unanimously is a wonderful feeling. Secondly, in the Mary Magdalene painting, Jesus told them that he would return, and he's a God who keeps his promises. I love it when Jesus says, "I will be with you to the end of the age." Mary Magdalene was distraught with grief and fear. How on earth were they going to manage without Jesus? It's easy for us to think, but he's standing right next to you. Why can't you see him? But of course, if we remember, this is before she has realised that he's risen from the dead, then it's the last person she expects to see. He was there, but she didn't see him until he called her by name. I love that. He knows each one of us by name. We're told that in the scriptures. In all our problems, Jesus is there with us. We saw it on the story of the road to Emmaus, and we see it in this story too. Jesus is with us. We just have to open our eyes and look and listen. And he's certainly not a gardener.